Hey Carson, good to see you again. Happy Friday to everybody who's watching. So I became a dad about, a little over a year and a half ago, but you are not only a multiple time dad, but you've been a dad for many years. You've got teenagers and the whole nine yards. So, one thing I've been adjusting to becoming a dad, and it's affected my professional life quite a bit. It's changed the way that I view my career and my job and a lot of things. But I'd love to hear your perspective. How has being a father changed the way that you look at your career and your job?
I love the question, man. It's changed everything. I had my first kid at the age of 28, and up until that point, it was all about me. It was all about climbing the ladder, making the money, winning the awards. It was very self-focused, very self-centered, and having a kid at that age was like the greatest blessing that could have ever come my way. Because, and don't get me wrong, not every parent may have this experience, but I hope they do. It really instilled in me the importance of patience and, you know, being there for and having somebody else be the center of your universe as opposed to yourself. It was the perfect kick in the pants that I needed. Um, Compare and contrast that because I have a 17-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old, all girls. Um, Flash forward now to this stage of my life and career. Um, I think about some of the things, and I even wrote an article recently about, some of the leadership traits and abilities that I think I've picked up, from being a dad. And I read a quote recently that really resonated with me. It's you don't raise your kids to be like you raise them to be who they're meant to become. And if you're lucky, they'll let you walk beside them long enough to learn from them too. And what that really meant to me was, I don't force my kids to do activities or sports or, just because I did them. Like I loved basketball and golf and, I don't impart and instill those in my kids. They go off and they do singing and arts and dance and guitar and all kinds of things that are in their alley, and they do it for their personal passion reasons. You and I talk a lot on this show about finding your why, and just like it's important to find the why of anybody else in your sphere, like it's the same with your kids. You got to help them discover what really matters to them. And so when I think about what's really changed with me, over my time, I've been in leadership for a couple of decades. I've had kids for the majority of that time, and so what I've really realized is that it's not about me. I've become a better listener. I've become better at, and thanks to my wife turning me on to some books about secure parenting and one called Raising Daughters That Like Themselves. Um, Really being able to sit in those moments where it doesn't require a fixer. My biggest problem in relationships has always been I see something and I go and fix it. It's great for my career, but it's not great for the relationships that matter, whether it's my wife or my kids. They don't want me to come in and just fix everything. Sometimes they just want me to listen. Sometimes they want me to be the shoulder to cry on or to see them or to understand as opposed to just jumping in with the solution. And that has been illuminating for me. It might seem obvious or feel obvious to other people, but like I'm, still learning at this ripe old age, like how to be better in relationships. And my kids help me with that literally every single day. Um, I'd say one of the last elements too is, I had earlier in my career, it had instilled in me like control the controllables and, don't sweat all the small stuff. Um, your kids are going to do things like put makeup all over themselves or write on the wall and like wreck the car. God willing, they're going to be okay. The key element is like, there's no need to like turn these situations into something monumental. Because at the end of the day, if they're okay and they learn from it, God knows I made just about every mistake you can possibly make as a human being, and I came out okay. Um, they've got to make their own mistakes, and that's really hard to realize sometimes. And I think sometimes we look at our teams the same way. We want to swoop in and keep our direct reports from making mistakes, or from we want to take over the call because we know how. But the reality is that's not the right thing. They need to learn by doing, just like we did. And so I really try. I don't get it right all the time. I still make mistakes constantly. Um, but I really try to give people the space, especially my kids, the space and the grace to, make their own decisions. Life is a sum of choices, learn things, even if sometimes it's the hard way. My wife also read that book that she turned me on to, called Let Them. And some of that is just about, letting them make some of these choices and experiences, even though you may have a completely different opinion or perspective about what they could or should be doing because you've lived it and done it. They haven't, and you've got to let them have that same experience. That's how I feel being a dad has most impacted my career and just me as a human being. What about you?
Well, that was great. That was deep. I mean, it's a tough act to follow. I love what you said about, being the fixer. Um, I think that's a tough thing for people. For me, I think it's probably a couple things. One is work-life balance. I mean, it's an obvious one, but I'm the type of person who makes my job, my top priority. I'm always dialed in. My coworkers have often in various different jobs joked like if I'm on vacation, like, hey Jeff, you got to go on vacation, like got to get off Slack, stop talking to us right now, that type of thing. I'm the type of person who kind of takes my work with me. Bad habits. I check my phone way too much. That's not even a work related thing. That's just a Jeff thing that I need to fix. But I'm definitely kind of the type A, anxious type of personality, for better or for worse. And so work is always on my mind. And I think instead of making work my number one priority and everything else kind of comes after that, it's really my daughter's my number one priority and everything comes after that. And what that means is that in the mornings, I've got responsibilities with my daughter. I've got responsibilities at 5 o'clock, right when the clock strikes five. I take over for the nanny. I block my calendar from 5 to 6 and ask people to try not to book calls with me at that time. Sometimes things come up and I have to be on childcare duty or responsibility, and work stuff has to be secondary in that situation. And so everything really revolves around the schedule of my daughter and making sure that she's being well taken care of, and um, and then everything that is to do with me comes next. And that does mean that sometimes, if I could sneak out to, at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday to see her go to her little soccer practice that she goes to, that, I'll try to do that, right? I always get my work done, so I kind of build around, my family, and then go from there. I think the second thing, and it's kind of related, is just about perspective. In our jobs, in our lives, we have good days and bad days, but I think especially on the bad days, having a kids really gives you a sense of perspective. I think the reason we work so hard is because even before having kids, it's because we want to take care of the families that we will have someday. But you realize that no matter how much money you have or how well you take care of them or don't, that they will still be there. And so when I've had a bad day, and then I get to spend time with my daughter, I kind of am able to put that bad day aside because this is really what it's all about. Like this is really what I'm living life for. I'm not living life to work. I'm working so that I can live life, right? And so that's, I think, it gives you a perspective. Whereas if I didn't have children, I think I would take that with me. I think that I'm the type of person who would have a hard time letting it go, that things that are tough right now, and it would be on my mind. But when you've got other bigger priorities, it gives you some perspective. But don't sweat the small stuff. There's going to be another day. Your family's still there. The things that matter are still there, no matter what happens in your day-to-day life at work or elsewhere, right? I've run marathons. Some of the results haven't been what I wanted them to be, but in the end, my wife was still there by my side. And the last one I ran, I FaceTimed her and my daughter as I was crossing the finish line. So that's, I think, what it's all about. It's kind of giving you some perspective, but also giving you back some work-life balance that you might not otherwise give yourself the grace to have. So those are the two big ones for me.
It's funny that I worked myself to the bone in my 20s, 24/7. I was always on, and I'm more effective now than I've ever been. And I have very firm guardrails for when I walk out this door and I'm with my family. I had a buddy of mine tell me a few years ago, it's like be where your feet are. Um, my kid doesn't care that I crush my number. She just wants me to play with her, you know, and so it's teaches you the importance of being present, and that transcends into your career as well. We're always modeling, and they're going to pick up like what we're doing and what we prioritize, and so it's a big responsibility. And it's the same responsibility sometimes that we have with our teams. Parenting is like a leadership role. You know, it's not always fun and games. In fact, it's probably the hardest job I've ever had. But at the end of the day, it's the most rewarding.
Yep, absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, another winning episode. I'd love for our audience to share some stories from their own parenting journeys as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carson.
See you next time.